Hi everyone, coming on today to talk a little bit more about definitions. Today I would like to start with the definitions surrounding the first section of most advanced directive forms, that is the medical power of attorney. In medicine, we tend to use the phrase medical power of attorney and surrogate somewhat interchangeably. And while that is medical jargon and relatively acceptable in medicine, we are not being very accurate because a medical power of attorney and a surrogate really are two distinct things. A medical power of attorney is a person who has been chosen by an individual to make medical decisions for them. It is a legally appointed position. On the other hand, a surrogate is someone who has kind of been picked out by the state. Oftentimes, many states, probably all states, have a hierarchy of people that a medical team could go to for medical decisions in the event that their patient could not make decisions for themselves. And these hierarchies generally follow the same format. The very first person in the hierarchy would be a spouse. I do not believe that in states that have the common law that spouse is allowed to make decisions. I could be wrong on that, but typically a spouse is the person who is legally married and has proof of that legal marriage. Second in line would be adult children. Barring any adult children, then it would move to a parent. After a parent, a surrogate could be siblings or aunts and uncles, and then on down the list to include close friends who are willing to accept that responsibility, sometimes even neighbors who are willing to step forward and say, I've known this person or I've taken care of this person. And then when the state has run out of options of people that could be the surrogate, it then falls to perhaps chaplaincy or a team of doctors or maybe social work team. Picking a medical power of attorney is a process in and of itself. Okay, so if you don't like the surrogacy route and you want to define your own medical power of attorney, which I do recommend, you need to think about that from several angles. First of all, when you are thinking about someone to pick to be your medical power of attorney, will this person do what you're asking them to do? Will they follow your instructions even if it goes against their own judgment? So if you're going to ask your medical power of attorney to discontinue care after 3 days on the ventilator, and the medical team says, well, we have, reason to believe that this individual requires 3 weeks of care before they could come off the ventilator safely. If you're very strict on that idea of, I only want to be on the ventilator for 3 days, would your medical power of attorney be able to follow that? The other question to answer is, would your medical power of attorney be able to emotionally withstand perhaps some guilt that could be brought to bear if they're following your instructions, but other family members who are not making those decisions for you then have things to say, opinions on what your care should have been? A lot of times in my own practice, I have seen people pick a medical power of attorney based on their love relationship. Well, this is my oldest child, so he will be my medical power of attorney. This is my youngest daughter. She's always been the more emotionally stable, so she's going to be my medical power of attorney. Well, this is my spouse. They have to be my medical power of attorney. The reality is, no one has to be your medical power of attorney. If you're going to do this correctly, you should pick someone who can withstand the medical pressures of the responsibility, because it is a responsibility, who would follow your own instructions, whether they like those instructions or not. I don't want toast on Fridays, and that being something I tell my medical power of attorney to do in a previous video. And lastly, someone who has the cognitive capacity to dig in and understand medical decisions. For example, a medical power of attorney who was perhaps your Down's syndrome daughter might not be the best person for you to have as medical power of attorney, even though you love her deeply, because generally somebody who has some deficits in their cognitive sphere are not going to be good medical powers of attorney. I hope this answers any questions you might have about the differences of medical power of attorney versus surrogate. If you have further questions, please let me know in the comments and I will address those in the next video. Thanks. Bye.